coming into our next speaker, Jeff Slutsky, you know, one thing I hear lawyers say, well, you know, we want to hear lawyers talk more because, you know, they know who we are and everything. But I submit to you, just as Harlan said and I said, you can learn so much from other industries if you'll just listen and be a little bit innovative. Now, Jeff Slutsky is not a lawyer, but it doesn't matter. He has a background in both advertising and public relations. He had an opportunity to practice what he preached when he became part owner of a nightclub and a health club. And he created this unique combination of shrewd thinking, innovative problem solving, and budgeting on a shoestring. And you know, that's my big slogan for Pilmma, is how to create a case, increase your caseload without spinning a load or spending a boatload. So his grassroots marketing program has received a great deal of national attention from USA, CNN, Wall Street Journal. It's called the Street Fighter, and his program, and its client list includes AT&T, Goodyear, Marvel Comics, the city of Dallas, state of Arkansas, and even India. There's some smart people over there. If they hired him, they must really think he's damn smart. So, he's the president of Jeff Slutsky Productions. He's from Columbus, Ohio, and he has authored and published 10 books. The one that I'm most interested in is the one he wrote with Dan Kennedy, who is one of my mentors, genius marketer. And if Dan Kennedy endorses him enough to write a book with him, he's got to know what he's talking about, because Dan Kennedy doesn't have any time for anybody, no BS. In fact, that's the name of his business, No BS Marketing, right? So anyway, without further ado, here's Jeff Slutsky.
Okay. Street fighter marketing is an attitude. It's a philosophy, a thought process about thinking your competition, not outspending them. Street fighters think differently than normal people. They don't use a lot of money to do their marketing and advertising. They use their creativity. Now, don't let the term creativity scare you. Sometimes when I say the word creativity or creative, you think you have to be an artist or a writer. I think the most creative thing I've ever done was my '87 tax return. But street fighter marketing is a way of looking at things and getting them done cheaper, faster, better. I want to give you a few examples from outside the industry to start our thinking, and then we'll roll up our sleeves and start applying it. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're in a different type of business. Say you run an appliance store, and you have a very serious problem on your hands. People come into your store, they get a price on a refrigerator, a freezer, maybe a TV set. They waste an hour of your time getting all the details, all the information. And after all that, then they start beating you up over the price. And after that, they say, well, I want to think about it. And they leave and you never see them again. This actually happened to a client of mine, one of my very first clients, a gentleman by the name of Bruce Wisman of Wisman Appliances in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He goes, Jeff, they're shopping me to death. I have 5 major competitors, all within 3 to 5 minutes drive time of my store. I'm the last local guy left. I got all these national guys, regional guys, and they come in here, all the customers come in here because they know my name. They get all this great information, we talk to them, they say, well, we want to think about it, and they leave and we never see them again. Is there anything we can do to keep these people from shopping around so much? Or better yet, if I could just be the last place they visit, I got a half a shot at them buying something from me. Well, we had him do a number of different things, one of which was filling his freezers with half gallons of ice cream. Customer would come in, get a price on that refrigerator, the freezer, the TV set, waste an hour of the guy's time, say, well, we want to think about it, so we knew they were going to leave and shop the competition. But before they left, the sales force was instructed to give that customer absolutely free a half gallon of ice cream just for stopping in the store. Well, they get in their car on a hot July day, ready to shop 5 or 6 other places, when they realize they have a little problem on their hands. They had to immediately go home, put that half gallon of ice cream in the freezer. It got them out of the momentum of shopping and competition, and as a result, according to an article in the Wall Street Journal, Bruce's sales increased that year by 13.5%. This is an example of how a Street Fighter would solve a sales or marketing problem without spending a lot of money. So why do we need to be Street Fighters? Especially in your business. And I think there's several reasons. One, competition. There seems to be more and more competition all the time. Two, marketing, advertising is more challenging than ever before. I've read different statistics that say that your potential clients are exposed to maybe 25 or 30 advertising messages every day, and they'll only remember 2 or 3. So the vast majority of all the advertising, all the marketing, all the telemarketing, all the direct mail, all that stuff gets lost, gets wasted, because people cannot remember all that information. If they remembered all 30,000 impressions, they would go crazy. The brain tunes it out and only allows for a couple messages a day to come in. Matter of fact, to illustrate that point, I'm going to do a little experiment. I need a volunteer to help me for just a minute. One volunteer. I pay big bucks for this. We have one right here. Okay, come on up. No, come on up. No, you've got to come. I'll meet you halfway here. Come here. Ugh. You could have gone this way. It's shorter, but that's okay. Yeah.
I didn't know you had to leave your seat.
I'm sorry. Would you bring her seat over? And you are?
Melanie.
Melanie, I'm Jeff.
Nice to meet you.
Melanie, say hi to the group.
Hi.
Group, say hi to Melanie. It's like a meeting I was at last week. Okay, here's the exercise. Nobody help Melanie out. Melanie does this for herself. I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Okay.
In 30 seconds, name for me 20 different brands of toothpaste. Go.
Crest, Colgate, Aquafresh. Is it Aquafresh?
Don't ask me.
Ultra Bright, Sensodyne.
You have
We're at,
5 seconds.
Pepsodent. I'm out.
You're okay. And I just realized I don't have a second hand on this watch. But, now notice after the third or maybe the fourth time, it gets more and more difficult for Melanie to remember toothpaste brands. There's about 50 different brands of toothpaste on the market. They're all spending millions of dollars to get her to remember the name. And after that third or fourth one, people tend to forget, which means if you're not in the 1 or 2 positions in your marketplace, you're really wasting your money completely. You have to be top of mind. For helping me out, I got a present for you. Let's see if I can get back up here. Ugh. Okay, you get your choice. I got a couple books here.
Oh, good.
Okay, here's your choice. Now, you can have Street Fighter Marketing Solutions, Simon & Schuster. That's the heaviest one. Street Fighter Marketing for Your Business, this was a predecessor, has more illustrations. Or From the Big Screen to the Real World, co-written with Larry Winget, and these are our favorite motivational movie quotes. Your choice. Pick one. This costs more.
Okay, I'm going to take this one.
Okay, good choice. Very good. Let's give her a big hand for helping me out. So people don't want to see your advertising. They don't want to get your marketing. They don't want your direct mail. They don't want your phone calls. They tune it out. So as Street Fighters, we got to find a way to get them to remember our message. Let me give you a few more examples of some Street Fighter marketing tactics that seem to get some attention. Years ago, Denver, Colorado, mom and pop pizza place, very successful, had 3 locations. Back then, they used an advertising medium. You may not remember this, but back then they had something called the Yellow Pages. You may recall. And all they did was delivery. They did pizza delivery. That was their business. And their main form of advertising was the Yellow Pages. In the pizza delivery section or pizza section, on page 3, they had a quarter-page ad. It worked fine for years. Then Domino's started their major expansion when they started to become a major national player, moved out of Detroit and expanded into a bunch of other markets. They go into Denver, they sell a bunch of franchises, and they start advertising like crazy. Billboards, coupon drops, television, radio, and the very first Yellow Page, full-page, Yellow Page advertising in Denver. Now, naturally, since they had a full page, when the new Yellow Page book comes out, they get page 1 of the pizza section. On the back of that Domino's ad, 4 major competitors. Our poor mom and pop get shoved deeper into the section, page 5, which meant when the new Yellow Page book came out that year, people had to turn the pages over a few more times. And as you know, the closer to the front of the section, the more likely you are to get the phone call. Well, what are you going to do? How do you compete? There's no way this guy can compete dollar for dollar against Domino's. But he was a street fighter. Within 10 days, he runs a campaign that says, bring us the Domino's Yellow Page ad out of the phone book. Into my location, I'll give you 2-for-1 pizzas. People were ripping them out and bringing them in. They were going in the phone booths and ripping them out. You couldn't find a Domino's Yellow Page anywhere in Denver. Domino's was upset. They had to pay for that ad for another 11 and a half months. Now, usually when I share that story, it's a little chuckle, and I think rightfully so. It shows the spirit and creativity of a street fighter, except about 6 months ago, I'm in Toronto addressing a group of Domino's pizza managers. No sense of humor. But they are starting to use the idea as a preemptive strike. Matter of fact, Domino's sued over that, and they lost the suit because I guess once I don't know the legal stuff, but once the Yellow Pages go out, you own them and so forth. So that's my only legal reference for the entire workshop. Another one, let me give you another one we're talking about competition. This is one of my favorites. Several years ago in Virginia Beach, Virginia, there's a McDonald's there on a peninsula. No direct competition. I mean, this is a fast food person's dream. No major competition. This was doing twice the national average of your typical McDonald's. Wendy's finds out about it. Wendy's is based in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio. Wendy's decides they got to be in that market. They figure with a 20 to 25% market share, they're going to be still very profitable. They could hardly wait. They decide to build a unit directly next door to the McDonald's. And then they get even more excited. They say, well, if we do a huge grand opening, I mean a major one-day event to kick it all off, maybe we can shoot that thing up to 35, 40% market share. The guy's planning his retirement already. So on the day of the grand opening of this brand new Wendy's, the McDonald's guy who's going to experience competition for the very first time puts up a huge banner on his store. It says, in honor of our new neighbor, we will be closed. Go visit them. Now, Wendy's was anticipating upwards of 35 to 40% market share that day. They weren't anticipating 100% market share that day. Let me ask you a question. What's the main reason you go to a fast food restaurant? If you're waiting in line for an hour and a half for your double and a side of chili, are you going to be a regular customer of that restaurant? They got such a bad reputation from that grand opening experience. That unit was forced to shut down 90 days later. Now, that McDonald's guy was smart. He was able to solve his problem because he understood what his customer base demanded, and he was able to deal with it. Now, just because it's McDonald's, don't always assume they do the right thing. He had a buddy in another part of the country who was so proud of their new Braille menu, he had it laminated. Little common sense. Now, all the marketing, all the advertising, all the promotion that you do to get exposure is useless if we don't treat the clients right, if we don't get the referrals, if we don't handle it, if we don't answer the phone call fast. So there's an exercise that I normally do in a 2-day boot camp, and I'm going to teach it to you, and you can take it back to your offices and work it with anybody that comes in contact with clients. Now, I'll talk you through this little exercise. You'll be able to take it back. It only takes a minute. Now, here's what we need to do. I need everybody, and just takes a minute, everybody just stand up for a second. Let me come down here. Here we go. Okay. Stand up. Stand up. Very good. Okay, I need you to face a partner. You do it in a small group of 3, but face somebody. No talking. No talking. No talking. Here's the exercise. Shh, no talking. I'm going to count to 3. And when I reach 3, I want you to look at your partner. Then at the top of your lungs, yell, what the hell do you want? Okay, ready? Up, 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 up. Wait, no, you got to listen to the instructions. Wait till I count to 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. What the hell do you want? You guys have had practice of this one, haven't you? Part 2 might be a little more difficult for this group. This time I'm going to count to 3. And when I reach 3, I want you to look at your partner longingly. With your most sincere voice, your most sincere smile, say, hi there, how may I be of service? This may take 5 or 6 tries. 1, 2, 3. I thought so. Sit down. You guys need a little work. Okay, with street fighting, we're going to be a little creative. We're going to think differently than normal. Let's take direct mail, for example. What's a typical response to direct mail advertising, would you say? How much? 1 or 2%, 3%? Let me share with you a few examples that get a little better than that kind of average. Denise Crawford has a quick print shop in Solon, Ohio. Solon is a suburb of Cleveland. It's near that fish place, SeaWorld. She was at Las Vegas for her annual convention for quick printers. While she was at the MGM Grand, which is where their conference was, she gets this brainstorm. She buys a case of postcards from the MGM Grand. So the full color postcard with the lion on the front, takes the postcards back to her little quick print shop in Solon. Prints on the reverse side, don't gamble with your printing needs. Bring this postcard in for a 10% savings on your first order. Looks up 400 names of businesses who were not already her customers. Mails out the postcards, the postcard rate. Mails out 400, she gets 100 redemptions. That's a 25% return. What is it about that particular mailing that you think got her a 25% when the average is 3 to 4%, if you're good? What was it about that?
Third-party endorsement?
Possibly. What else? It's different. What happens to most mail when it comes in? Well, it goes in the trash. So I call it junk mail. But you get a color postcard from Las Vegas. You're going to say, who do I know in Vegas and how much did they win? And you turn it over, don't gamble, and tie it in with the headline. It broke through the clutter. It didn't look like, mail that goes in the trash. And a guy heard that story, had a different type of business, was in Orlando, decided to try the same thing. He bought up a bunch of picture postcards from Orlando. Don't Mickey Mouse around when you can paraphrase. Or if the guy that's working with you now is Goofy, it had a picture of Goofy on the front. It gets through the clutter. What other types of mailings almost always get opened up? Greeting cards. Greeting cards almost always get opened up. FedEx gets opened up. Tubes get opened up. Checks. I got a few that I haven't opened yet, but yeah, I think you're on the right track. One thing that I found out that almost gets 100% readership, and I cannot figure this out to this day, and you guys will have to explain this to me. Wedding invitations. Why is that? I mean, what is a wedding invitation from a marketing perspective? It's a piece of solicitation. People send out a wedding invitation for what purpose? What is the main objective of this piece of mail? A gift. And I don't, it's to me, it's junk mail, right? Okay, it looks prettier, but it's junk mail. But in my house, when my wife gets a wedding invitation, she gets excited, opens it up, it goes on the refrigerator. She's so excited. I think it just cost me $300. But if you want people to read your message, maybe we should make it look like a wedding invitation. It doesn't have to be the oversized, really expensive ones, just a 5.5 by 4.25 fold over with a textured envelope, very inexpensive. Don't use a computer to put the address on it. Hand address it, that always helps. On the reverse side, put that curly Q typeface for your return address, no company name, just a return address. And don't use a meter, use a love stamp. They come out with new ones every year, stick a love stamp on it. You mail that out, people will open it up and read it. And then it's an invitation to discover the best service you're going to get or the best representation or however you want to paraphrase. But if they don't read the message, you don't have a good chance at them calling you. So the first objective of any piece of direct mail is to at least get someone to read the message. You mentioned greeting cards. How many people send out Christmas cards to a list? Total waste of money. Christmas cards. And why do I say that? Why are Christmas cards, from a marketing perspective, a waste of money? Because everybody sends them. In my office, we start getting the Christmas cards right after Thanksgiving. And what happens when they come in? What do we do with them? They go on the wall. We have a wall, and we tape them to the wall. And all of a sudden, there's 20, 30, 40 different Christmas cards. Which one do I remember? None, because there's 40. I have a buddy of mine, Scott Freeman from Denver, sends me a Thanksgiving Day card. It goes on the wall in the middle of November. He's the only one on the wall for a month. I remember Scott. So think about it. Why use all that competition? What are some other holidays where you can get greeting cards where you can make more of an impact? I mean, start from the first of the year. After the first of the year, what's the next major holiday? We could send somebody a greeting card. Valentine's Day. So you use Valentine's Day cards. You know, we love taking care of our clients or something like that. When's the best time to buy Valentine's Day cards? February 15th, you get them for 10 cents on the dollar or cheaper. So you set it up for next year. After Valentine's Day, what's the next major holiday? St. Patrick's Day. We're going to make you some green, okay? What's the next major holiday after that? Easter. We're going to resurrect your... No, that's not going to work. But, you know, look at what other people aren't doing. Now, there's one exception to the Christmas card thing. My father-in-law's uncle worked for a garment company in New York. And every year they'd send out their 500 Christmas cards to their customer base. And they would, in November, they'd have it pre-addressed and stamped, ready to go. And right after Thanksgiving, they'd pop them in the mail. Well, one year, they forgot to put them in the mail. There was a change of people or something, and whoever was in charge of making sure it got mailed, they forgot. So one day in March, they're in the back room, and they're looking for something, and they find this box of 500 Christmas cards, already stamped, already addressed. What do you do with them? They threw them in the mail. And then within a week, they started getting phone calls from all their clients. You'll never believe what the post office did to your Christmas card this year. They got more sales in March, which is like the worst month they normally have, because of this mistake, which is something you could really only do once. Okay? So let's look at street fighting as it relates to other forms of advertising. How many people are using outdoor advertising? Billboards. Anybody? Billboard advertising. Now, typically what happens with a billboard, if you buy 2 or 3 boards or however they're selling it, they usually call them GRPs or gross rating points, and you buy them for a year at a time. And when you buy 12 months consecutively, you get a 10% discount off the rate card. However, a billboard salesman once taught me this little trick. When you're buying billboards, he says, instead of buying 12 months at once, why not buy 6 months, but just buy them every other month for a year? So what happens at the end of the first month? They climb up there, rip down the vinyl, put up something new for 30 days. Half the time they leave it up there. On average, you'll get 9 to 10 months of exposure for 6 months worth of cost. When you're talking about marketing and advertising, the more exposure you get for the dollar, the better chance you have of people remembering you when it comes to their time of need. If you're not top of mind, you're usually not even considered. So the purpose of marketing and advertising is to get people to remember your name and get them to remember your number so that when the time comes, they're going to call you. So you need to get as much exposure given the same dollars. So if the salesperson from the billboard company or the radio station or the cable company or TV or the magazine or whatever you're using for advertising and marketing, and they have a rate card and they run specials and then they'll give you a little trip if you buy X amount of advertising. They got all kinds of tricks. These people are not your friends. They're trying to get as much advertising dollars for the least amount of exposure as they possibly can. And I came from an advertising agency background, a PR background. I even sold radio time for my first job right out of college. It was a country radio station before country was cool. Ranked 10th in a 9-station market. Very difficult to sell. So let's talk about radio, for example. It's negotiable. Now, depending on the market. Now, you know, a major station in a major market may not be as negotiable. But remember, with any kind of airtime, it's a perishable commodity. When that minute is gone, they can't sell it, so they'll take something for it. Now, it's going to be a lot more difficult through the election, so you got to wait till your negotiations, probably first of the year, start over again. During election years, and especially in Ohio, we're a battleground state, the availabilities, they call them avails, are just not there. So you're going to have to do this the right way. But here's something that some radio people taught me. Here's how I used to negotiate a radio buy. I wait till the salesperson comes to me with their proposal. They come to me with the beautiful 4-color folder which shows the exposure, like, oh, we reach everybody in the world. And they talk about, we're number one. Have you ever noticed that every radio station is number one in their marketplace? They may be number one for left-handed Armenian midgets between ages of 14 and 17 on Saturdays, but they're always number one at something. So read the fine print, okay? The way to buy radio or any kind of media is I think, cost per thousand. So forget about, rating points are also another way of looking at it, but cost per thousand tells you how many eyeballs or how many ears you're reaching for the dollar, and that way you can compare one station to another. What happens is, given a limited budget, it usually is, if you tell the radio stations, this is going to be 100% buy on one station, they're going to be a lot stronger in advertising. Now, if it's a limited budget, you don't need to spread it out over 2 or 3 stations. I very seldom buy the number one station in the marketplace. Why is that? The real number one station. It's not just, expensive, it's the cost per thousand. So they may, let's say, have 100,000 people and they're charging $100 a spot for it. The second station may have 50,000, but they're charging $20 a spot. Which is the better value? And remember, one commercial doesn't do you any good. You got to be on the station, 20, 30 times before it starts to sink in. You can't spread it out. If you have just enough money for 30 commercials and you spread them out over 6 months, it's wasting your money. Take that same amount of money, and it's called flighting, put it in a shorter time span, so when people start complaining that they're tired of hearing your commercial, that's when it's just starting to work. You'll see it more often because it's your commercial, and your relatives will see it more often, and your friends, but not the people who haven't had the accident yet. Okay? They are not even in a position to use your services, but then when it happens, bam, who are they going to remember? That's why the flighting, you're better off putting it in a shorter time frame, be off for a while, come back, hit it hard, and so forth. The stations don't like that because it affects their avails. Okay? Then there's a few other things. You've got to be able to negotiate with these people. Now, some people may be offended when I tell some of these techniques to normal groups. They sometimes, when really hard negotiators are offended, I have a feeling you won't be, but that's just my gut feeling here. Here's what I do. I wait for the radio station to make a proposal to me, whatever it is. So let's say it's a $5,000 schedule for X amount of commercials. Now, when you start negotiating, don't touch the budget. If it's $5,000, stay with $5,000. Why is that? Think in terms of the guy selling you the airtime. Here's this person who's coming in to sell you $5,000 worth of airtime. They put them through all the motivational training. They force them to listen to Tony Robbins albums. They send them to, they hype them up. And so he's there, he's ready to sell you. And, so how are these guys paid? Remember, there's no cost against the actual product. How are they paid? Commission on gross. So let's just say it's 10% to make the numbers easy. So when they come to your office with a $5,000 package, what's this guy thinking about? What's the number in his head? $500 if this guy signs the deal. Okay? Now, if you say, okay, I'll do it for $4,500, what's he thinking? I just lost $50. Don't mess with his money. If you have a budget, you set that up front, say, I got $5,000 to spend, what can you do for me? Let's say he comes back with 100 commercials. Negotiate the number of commercials. Leave the money alone. He doesn't care how many commercials you get. It doesn't cost him anything. It's air. It's air. If you don't buy it now, it's going to go away. So, okay, I need 150 commercials. Well, I don't know if my sales manager will do it. I'll tell you what, you get me 140 commercials and the deal's yours. If not, I got to go to this other station. So now Their salesman becomes your salesman. He goes back to the station. He goes to his sales manager. He uses all the motivational stuff they forced him to listen to convince his boss why you should get 140 commercials when everybody else is getting 100 commercials. And he'll probably come up with it. Now, here's another trick that I do. In radio, unlike television, a 60-second, except on Clear Channel because they changed theirs, but usually a 60-second commercial costs just a little more than a 30-second commercial. If a 30-second commercial is, let's say, $25 in a relatively small market, a 60-second commercial may be 30. Okay, whereas in television is usually doubled. Okay, so but what I do is I want to get as much frequency as I possibly can. Frequency is the key to success in media, radio, television, cable, and to some degree in other media too, like print. So if I want to get more frequency, I'll say, quote me 30-second commercials. So that way I'll get about 20% more numbers. So then they come back and I get my 140 30-second commercials. And what I do is I hand them a tape with my commercial already made. It's a 60-second tape in a 30-second box. And they go back to the station, ready to start running my commercial, and the salesman calls me up in a panic. Jeff, you gave me a 60-second commercial. I know. But we talked about 30s. You are kidding. Are you serious? Did I really screwed? I apologize. And I take full responsibility. I screwed up, but I have a problem. Would you like to know what my problem is? All I have is my $5,000. And I have to have the 140 commercials because that's what I got approved from my boss. God, I hate to have to cancel the thing. Is there any way, maybe this one time, I'm sure it was just a communication problem, can we let this thing slide just once? Now he goes back to his sales manager, use all the motivation, the Tony Robbins tapes, and goes there and says, well, there was some miscommunication. We thought it was 30s, but it's actually 60s. And the guy already spent the commission money. He goes, okay, let it go. 95% of the time, they'll just let it slide. This only works once. Then I always leave the last 5 to 7 seconds blank for a live announcer tag. You know what that is? On radio, that's when the announcer comes in live. They can only do this in radio. Announcer comes in live and says, be sure to call them today, and they say something live. And I make sure they do that for several reasons. One, I don't know if you've been to a radio station, most of it's automated, but a lot of the commercials, especially in some of the older stations, they still put them on these things called carts. They look like the old 8-track tapes. And so here's a DJ who's doing his thing, right? And he's got to play 8 commercials in a commercial break. But one of them, he has to come in and talk at the end. Okay? Now, during these commercials, which go one to another automatically, he's got to go to the bathroom, and he's got to answer the hit line, and he's got to do the FCC log, and he's not going to put that in the middle. He's going to save it to the end. Now, if you have 8 commercials in a row, okay, one immediately following the entertainment and one immediately preceding the entertainment, which of these 8 commercials are most likely to get heard, all things being equal? The first and the last one. So now you get to be last. You can't ask for the last position. But you're last, you get more. Now, my live tag, remember, it's 7 seconds long. I give him 10 to 15 seconds in the form of a tongue twister. And it's read live. So what happens when he starts reading that live tag? Well, it's tomorrow, so be sure to call blah, 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 blah. And he screws it up, and he starts laughing about it. You've heard these DJs do it. And they'll talk for 5, 10, 15 minutes about how they flubbed it up, and they go on and on. And now, what happens in radio is that you're driving along. It's a background medium. People aren't paying attention all that much. But the minute the jock screws up, people zoom right in, and now they're paying attention. Now you're making impact. Plus, you're getting all those free extra seconds on the air. And then as soon as they screw up, you call up your sales rep and say, he screwed up my commercial. And you get what's called a make good. Now, those kind of techniques, they don't always work all the time, but it allows you to get 20, 30, 40% more. Sometimes another technique is, let's say they have 120 commercials in the package. You say, okay, do matching overnights, and it's a deal. Matching overnights is the time between midnight and 5:30, depending on the station, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they can't sell it. So they try to sell it for 10% of schedule, oftentimes. So if it's for an extra $500, they'll double the schedule, but they'll be on at 3 in the morning. So, but I'm not going to buy it, but for free, it's a good time. And then I ask them to put it on if it's, let's say, 5:30 is the cutoff. I want all my spots, it's called bracketing. I want those spots to run between 5 and 5:30. I mean, there's still people getting up at 5 to 5:30, and I'll make some impact. Okay, so I can get more exposure for the same money. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask for it. So always ask for those little extras. Don't play the games where you're going to get the free trip with the advertising. Okay, the goal is to get the maximum amount of exposure for the dollar, as well as making sure your commercial makes impact so people want to respond to it. Does that make sense so far? Okay? For print, never buy a full page ad. You go in the newspaper, of course there's not a lot of newspapers that people use, but some of that is becoming negotiable. But you never need to buy a full page ad. The biggest ad you should ever buy is maybe 1 or 2 inches above the centerfold, and if it's let's say an 8-column wide paper, you would go 5 columns wide. It'll be the most dominant thing on the page, and it'll have as much readership as a full page ad for about 40 to 45% less dollars, because they charge per square inch. The other neat thing about print, and you can get this on it depends on sometimes of the year, like with USA Today, I've done it in some other national magazines that have been zoned for your marketplace. You can do what's called remnant space. And that is where you come in you offer 20, 30%, and you can say you can run my spot, run my ad anytime in the next 3 weeks. I don't care what day it runs, but I'm only going to pay 40 cents on the dollar. And if they happen to have an availability where they couldn't sell it, you'll get it. If they've sold it, you won't get it, but then you can run it again, so you're on standby. But if you don't have to have the exposure in that particular day, like a retailer on sale, where the sale ends tomorrow, okay, if it's not time sensitive, you can do remnant space and literally get 2 to 3 times as much exposure for the dollar in some pretty major publications if you handle it right. So these are the things I look for to make sure I get a lot more out of my advertising. Okay? And I'll save some time at the end if you have any questions, and we can go over some more specifics if you want at that. How are we doing on time? Okay, good. Because I want to shift gears. Because just as important as the advertising and the marketing stuff is how we communicate with the potential customers, the people that we ask for referrals, the referral sources who might send people our way, and oftentimes we forget that communication process. This is basic selling techniques. And I don't want the word selling to concern you. By selling is just a form of persuasive communication. You guys do this in your profession all the time, officially, but from a marketing perspective, we have to remember some basics about the communication process, because just somebody calls you doesn't mean they're going to choose you. So we have to make sure they choose you, and then we have to make sure they tell their friends who also need your services. So that is the communication process. So I want to review that because I think that's just as important, and a lot of times we forget about that part of the marketing process. Number 1 rule is be the one asking the questions. Client comes to you, they're going to be asking a lot of questions. Now you're out of control because you're answering. The person who asks the questions is in control of the conversation. It puts you at a tremendous advantage in the conversation. Why is that? Several reasons. Years ago, a sales trainer once told me that the average person thinks at about 1,200 words a minute, and the average person speaks at about 400 words a minute. And there's a few exceptions, 200 words a minute and so forth. But on average, people speak a lot faster, they think a lot faster than they talk. So what does this mean? So I'm talking to this person, and I'm doing all the talking, trying to convince them, and I'm giving them information, how wonderful we are. What's this person doing, this potential client doing? Well, I'm doing all the talking. She's thinking that's the worst thing you can let a potential client do. What's she thinking about? How wonderful I am? Or how come I don't look like my photograph in the yellow pages? What is she thinking about? All the reasons not to use me. Maybe she's got a brother-in-law who knows somebody, or there's all kinds of other problems. Never let the other person think. So you ask, I'm serious, you ask questions. Now, she does the talking, I do the listening, puts me at an advantage. Another thing is, it allows you credibility. Believe it or not, the more you listen, the more credible you are. Not the more information you give the person, it's the more you listen to them. I mean, think about someone who's got that kind of credibility in our society, like your own personal physician, a doctor, a good one. A doctor has credibility. Why? Because a doctor asks questions. Okay? Let's say you go to the doctor for the very first time. You're ushered into a little examination room. Person says, remove all your clothes. Doctor walks in, looks at you and says, well, I'm going to put you on 3 types of medication, give you 14 injections, and we're going to schedule surgery from a week from Tuesday. What are you going to be thinking about this doctor, besides potential suit? Not very credible, but what does a doctor do? You walk in there, what does the doctor? Doctor asks questions. What's the first question the doctor asks? Do you have insurance? They qualify. You answer yes, they ask more questions. Why are you here today? I have a pain. Where's the pain? It's in my stomach. Is it sharp or is it dull? It's sharp. When did it begin? 2 weeks ago. Did you eat anything unusual 2 weeks ago? I swallowed 14 roofing nails. Aha. So after a series of questions, the doctor has an idea what the problem might be and involves you in the process, and that way starts to work toward a solution. And that's what you want to be able to do with your potential clients and your referral sources. You want to form a procedure I like to call a cashectomy. And you do this by asking the questions and listening. But the most important reason you should be asking questions and listening is because people make decisions based on emotion. There is absolutely no logic whatsoever to the decision-making process. It's always based on an emotion. Especially in your line of work, there's so much emotion involved. And if you can tap in to their emotion, because every single person you talk to is different. They have different, they call them drivers. Okay, what are those emotional drivers that's causing this person to respond, and this person responds to different drivers or combination of drivers? And the more questions you ask, and the more you can find out what really motivates that person, or really, what are the emotions? Is it fear? Is it greed? Is it passion? Is it revenge? What are the emotional drivers that do that? And once you find out from this particular person what her drivers are, then you'll be able to address those issues so that they understand the value you bring to the table as their representation. Let me give you an example that happened to me. Several years ago, my buddy is trying to talk me into driving his car. Now, at the time, I'm driving an Oldsmobile 98 Regency. I don't know if you remember this car. It's a huge car, sleeps 12. And now my buddy's got this really hot sports car, and he wants me to take it out and have some fun. He thinks I'm dull. I need some excitement. Now, my buddy's an accountant. But he says, take it out, feel the power. I mean, he loved this car. This was his life. He just loved this car. My car, when I floor it, 3 days later, I accelerate. This is what I'm used to. So he finally talks me into it. Here I am in Columbus, Ohio, going around in my buddy's car, and I don't get it. Now, he is totally in love with this sports car. And for the life of me, I can't understand it because, it's low to the ground. I can barely see over the wheel. It's loud. It's bumpy. I'm so smooth. And I take it out, and I'm on Highway 70 on the east side of town. I just passed our bypass. And I look around. There's nobody around. I decide to punch it, to floor it, just to see what the excitement's about. And I floor it, and I get the shock of my life. This black smoke's flying out the back. The squealing sound is killing my ears. I'm forced back into the seat like someone hit me in the chest with a sledgehammer, and his car explodes forward like a rocket ship. And a big smile forms on my face. I never experienced power like this in my life. My heart's pounding, and I'm going faster and faster, and I'm fantasizing. I'm in an F-16, I'm shooting people down, and then I'm in a Star Trek fantasy. And where power's got you kind of help you, Captain. And then people are starting to get in my way, and I have to maneuver around them, and I barely turn the wheel. I'm in the next lane. In my car, when I want to change lanes, it's but here, and I'm weaving back and forth, passing people left and right. I'm waving at them, and they're gesturing back. And I decide right then I'm going to buy a car just like this one. The decision has been made. I am the decision maker. I'm a qualified buyer. I got the checkbook in my back pocket. I am ready to buy. This is a salesperson's dream, right? I go to 3 dealerships in Columbus, Ohio, ready to buy this car. And the same thing happens every time. Some guy in a plaid polyester sport coat with a big wide tie comes out, slaps me on the back, pops the hood, and shows me the engine. I'll tell you a little secret, I have no idea what the engine does. All I know is you got to have one for the car to go, and that's what I know about engines. And they're talking about overhead things and injection things, and they're losing me. I mean, all I want from this car is to go fast and look cool. That's what I want to buy. I don't want the hood up. I want it down. It looks faster that way. And these guys keep talking all this technical jargon, and it's just losing me. They're not understanding. I keep shopping around. This goes on for a month. Saturday afternoon, hit this one dealership. I'd been there a few times before, but this time I stroll in there. The sales manager recognizes me. His name was Dale. Dale comes over, introduces himself, and says, you know, I've seen you in here several times before looking at this car. Let me ask you a question. I go, what is it about this car? He asked, what is it about this car that keeps you coming back? Well, I got excited. I said, well, my buddy's got a car just like this one, and it was fast, and it handled great, and it was fast, and people were staring at me, and it was fast, and it was so much fun to drive, and it was fast. And he asked another question. Do you like to drive fast? Oh, yeah. He goes real fast, I go real fast. Now he's asking more questions about how fast I like to drive, and I'm getting more excited, more excited. He goes, can you keep a secret? I said, yes. I had this car out, the one you're looking at, had it out the other day. I was on Highway 70, I punched it. Guess how fast I was going? How fast? 110. Wow. Then I shifted in a second. Woo. He goes, not only that, everybody who saw me in this car thought I was cool. I looked right at him and said, I'll buy it. Now I'm ready to buy a car. I feel perfectly comfortable buying the car. I said, okay, let's do the sticker thing. You got a price, I got a price. He goes, Jeff, I don't think this is the car for you. I said, what are you talking about? You got a price, I got a price. Here's a $50 bill. Talk to the guy behind the curtain. I know how it works. I want to leave today with the car, which is not a very good negotiation strategy. He goes, calm down. I want to show you something. Takes me through a set of double doors off to the side. And in this little room, it's like a little prep room, there's another car. Same exact car I'm looking at. Same color, Chernobyl red. He goes to the car, gives me a big smile and says, $5,000 more. Now, I don't know how much this one is yet, but this one's $5,000 more. I want to know why. Takes me around to the rear end of the car, points a little sticker on the left-hand side. Turbo. I go, what does it do? He goes, I don't know, but you go faster and you look cooler. I bought it. I was a little depressed about 3 months after I bought the car. I'm driving north up to Cleveland. My sticker fell off. But these guys are so wonderful, they're willing to replace a sticker for $50. I was so impressed, I bought 2 stickers. I put one on my wife's minivan. Now, this guy not only got the sale, he got an add-on to the sale. What did he do that nobody else did? What did he do differently? He appealed to what mattered. He asked the questions. He got inside my head from an emotional standpoint. Forget the technical stuff. It's the emotional stuff that gets them to make the decision. What's important to them? Okay? So we have to ask the questions. Now, there's a technique you can use. I'll share this with you. That allows you to be in control of almost any conversation. And it's been around a while. You may have heard of it. It's called the echo technique. Here, just relax, because I'm going to give you the better part. Here's how it works. You're talking to somebody, and let's say it's going well, and you want more detail. You hit a nerve, and you want more detail. Just take the last word they say, 2 words, 3 words at the most, repeat it back to them in the form of a question, and they'll rattle on with more detail. Well, I was in an accident. An accident? Well, yeah, a guy broadsided me. Broadsided me? Yeah, my back's been killing. Your back? Oh, it's been sore from sore? Oh, yeah, from here down to here. Okay. So you keep them talking. You only have to say a word or two, and they give you all this information. I first heard this from a buddy of mine in Orlando. Bill Bishop taught me this technique. I was so excited. I'm dying to try out the echo technique. I'm flying home to Columbus, and I'm looking for someone to echo. I want to test it out. And I remember my fiancée is going to pick me up at the airport, who later became my wife. I thought, perfect. Let's try it out on her. So she picks me up. I get into the passenger side. We start to drive off. I turn to her and ask a question. How was work today? Ooh, work was crazy. They sent this guy in from the main office to do a quarterly report. Quarterly report? Oh, they send them every 3 months to make sure we hit our projections. Projections? Oh, yeah, last quarter was soft. We hit our projections. We get a big bonus. Blowing shit, the whole department gets to go on a trip. I kept her going for 25 minutes all the way home. I didn't say more than 15 words. I knew everything about her life, and she knew nothing about mine, which is pretty much what I wanted. She thought I was the most warm, sensitive, caring individual in the world. 1 year later, I closed the sale. 7.5 months later, we had some spin-off business. And then a couple years after that, we had triplets. Yes, and then another one. And yesterday was my 10th anniversary. Thank you. Thank you. It's not the same wife, but it's my 10th anniversary. So now here's the problem with the echo technique. If you go more than about 5 or 6 echoes, they're going to look at you and go, what's wrong with you, you an echo? So you have to alternate it with another technique that works the same exact way. You wait till the person's done talking, and this is the hardest part for you, I'm sure, is let them talk. But when they're done, you just cock your head to one side and go, oh. They go, yes, yes, I have this problem and this problem. Oh, and I have this problem and this problem. So here's what you do. You echo, 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 oh. Echo, 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 oh. Echo, 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 oh. Then right at the climax of the conversation, you look at them and go, no. And they go, oh, yeah. And you bring them back. In about 15 minutes, you get all this information. Now, a little bit of an aside. If you had to pick one group of people who are the best at gathering information, controlling the conversation through question asking, who would you select? If you had to guess. No. They don't listen. No, they're worst. Bartenders, close. I wouldn't know. Children. If you want to see the best salespeople in the world, children. My oldest daughter, Amanda, who's now, I hate to see, when she was 5 years old, she goes up to her mother. I wish I would have had this on tape. She goes up to her mother and she asks a closing question. This is a question designed to get a yes or no response. Mommy, can I go across the street to play with Aaron? This was her best friend. Mommy objects. Mommy says, well, dinner's in a half hour. I want you to stay put. You can play with her tomorrow. So Mommy follows up with logic, which works great with a 5-year-old. But Amanda doesn't stop. Amanda comes back with another question. Why? Well, I said dinner's in a half hour. You can play with her tomorrow. Amanda comes back with another question. Why? Because I said so. Why? Because I'm the mommy. Why? And I counted the exchanges. 16 times. Most people quit after 2 or 3, not my kid, 16 times. And finally, after the 16th, why? She goes, okay, get the hell out and come back in 15 minutes. Why does a 5-year-old girl know the 2 most important things are persistence and asking questions? And it wasn't until weeks later that I finally realized what it was. It's the books we read our children. I remember very clearly, this one day I was in bed with my 2 oldest kids at the time, 5 and 3, and I was reading them this sales and marketing book called Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. How many of you are familiar with this book? For those of you unfamiliar with this marketing book, let me give you a brief synopsis. We have 2 main characters. We have a sales rep, whose name is Sam I Am, and we have a cat in a hat who's a potential client. We have a new product introduction, happens to be a food item. It's gone through R&D. They've done a few focus groups. They're ready to roll it out on a regional basis, and they got to get this guy just to try it out. Free trial, doesn't have to pay anything. He just wants to do it. So he uses a technique called the choice close. The choice close is when you give somebody 2 choices, either of which is a yes. Well, do you want to get started on Tuesday, or should we begin the following Thursday? Okay? You want the green one, or do you want the blue one? So choice close starts out with, would you eat them here or there? But he objects. He goes, I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I Am. That's a major objection. Most people quit. Not Sam. He comes back with another. Would you eat them with a mouse, or would you eat them in a house? He objects again. I would not eat them with a mouse. I would not eat them in a house. I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I Am. Another major objection. Does he quit? No. He's got Fox and Box, Rain and Train. Guess how many times? 16 times. And finally, at the end of the book, what happens? He talks him into it and says, okay, I will try. If you leave me alone, don't bother me anymore, I will try your new product, your green eggs and ham. Takes a bite, and guess what? He loves them, and he's going to eat them all the time. Repeat business. He's going to tell Horton. He's going to tell Grinch. He's going to give all these referrals. He's going to tell Barney. I hate Barney. And kids have no fear of rejection, none, until maybe their early teens when they try the same exact technique. Well, would you like to go out with me Friday night or Saturday night? Neither, geek. And they learn about rejection and get a job as a speaker. Now, asking questions in this mode is not a natural thing. It's something we have to practice. So we're going to do a little exercise. This exercise is called hot potato. In order for this to work, you will stay seated, but I need you to work with a partner. So everybody identify, without talking, identify a partner. This is one-on-one. Go ahead. 2, 2, 2, cross, whatever. Some before. 2, 2. Maybe you can come down here and work with one of these guys. Everyone has a partner. Okay, now here's the exercise. Here's how it's going to work. Take something, if you have an empty glass or something, this is going to be your hot potato. And here's how it's going to work. The first person will start, we'll pick a subject that'll be fun. The first person will start with that subject. So let's say we're talking about gambling, for example. So this is a hot potato. This is 350 degrees. It is burning my hand. The only way for me to get rid of it is to ask my partner a question. So does that mean I want to talk for 10 minutes about how wonderful I am? Or do I want to ask her a question as fast as I possibly can? Do you do much gambling? Now she has the hot potato. You got it. So I'm safe now. So now the only way she can get rid of the hot potato is, first of all, she has to answer my question, can't ignore it. And then she's got to ask me a question. Is she going to spend 10 minutes answering my question? I don't think so. You like gambling?
Yes. How long have you done public speaking?
3 weeks. And it's longer than I care to remember. How do you like the conference so far?
Love it. Very impressed. How long have you been working with lawyers?
I'm working with lawyers now for about an hour and a half. And yourself?
Oh, God.
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, working with lawyers, I have a lot of problems that are,
12 years?
But you see what happens? So I want to so what'll happen is, let's pick a fun subject that we can all talk about for just 2 minutes. So give me some ideas, but it's got to be something everyone can talk about. Can you be more specific? This is the audience participation part. Come on, come on. What? The election. Vegas. Vegas is good. Okay. So you have your partner. Now, look at your partner. The one who'll begin is the one who's better dressed. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Now, listen up. I'm going to say start. I'll yell start. When I say start, the better dressed person will say first time in Vegas or whatever question you want to ask. No, been here plenty of times. How about you? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When I yell stop, the person holding the hot potato loses. At that point, your partner reaches across and slaps you in the face. Just a love tap. Let them know you need to work on it. So you want to unload your hot potato, right? You don't want to be talking and caught with the hot potato. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, on your mark, get set, go. You don't have a partner? Been to Vegas much?
No, this is my first time. How about you?
I come here probably 4 or 5 times a year. You like it?
Oh, I love it so far. I didn't realize that I would. What's your favorite part?
Going back home because I'm here working all the time. How about you?
I'm just kind of getting used to the environment. You think you'll be back here again in the future?
Actually, I'm scheduled back next month. How about you?
No, but I'm looking forward to it. How long have you been speaking?
Since 1980. Stop! Okay, who are my losers? Talking too much. Okay. Now, one last thing about the selling part and we'll move on. Handling objections. Here's the thing. Somebody has an objection, whatever it is, okay? They usually have, it could be a legitimate concern. Get back to your seat, okay. First of all, you have to determine whether it is a stall or a legitimate concern. What's the difference between a stall and a real objection? A stall is when they feel the pressure of having to make a decision and they're postponing. And it usually goes, well, I have to think it over, or I have to talk it over with so-and-so. Those are usually your two stalls. And why is that? Why would they be stalling? The reason is decision-making is painful. You can write that down. It's part of your notes. Decision-making is painful. People do not like to make decisions. And as long as you understand that, you've got to help them through the process so they don't feel the pain of making a decision. I mean, look at somebody at a restaurant reading a menu with more than two choices. You ever look at their face? It's like they're in physical pain. There's been university studies where they actually take these guys that donate blood 3-4 times a week, hook them up to computers, and do the brain waves, and they ask them a bunch of questions, and at one point they may ask them to make a decision, and they have the brain waves charted. Later in the experiment, they take a hat pin, sterilize it, and jam it in the guy's arm. He experiences physical pain, and they were almost identical. So the conclusion from the experiment was decision-making is painful. So the next thing is, well, you want to do it or not? They feel pain. So we don't want them to feel pain. So if they say, I have to think it over, or I have to talk it over with so-and-so, it means you're putting too much pressure on them, and you need to back off. Okay? They're not there yet. We haven't got their emotional drivers figured out yet, because the easy part should be the yes, if we take the conversation the right way. Okay? And if they're pushing back, that means there's too much pressure, it's too soon. Okay? Now, an objection, a real objection, whatever that might be, they always come back with something that the yes buts. Okay? Well, yes, but I have this friend that does this. Yes, but whatever. So before you deal with an objection, there's 3 steps that you do before which solves that problem. The first step is this: no matter what the objection is, no matter how stupid it may sound to you, you start off with the softener. That's step 1. Number 1, it's called the softener. And it's just very simple. I understand. My voice goes down. It should be empathetic. I understand. So no matter how ridiculous the objection is, you would say, I understand. So if I say, I don't know your firm, you would say,
I understand.
I heard you guys are really slow. You would say,
I understand.
your boss is a real idiot. You understand. Doesn't matter what it is, I understand. Part 2 is you have to isolate the objection. Other than this concern, is there any other reason why you wouldn't want to go ahead with us representing you? Other than insert the objection, any other reason why we couldn't get the go-ahead to represent you? Nope, that's just my main concern. So once that person says that, what have they just told us? There's just one issue we have to deal with, and if we deal with that issue to their satisfaction, then we will get the go-ahead. Okay? So it makes it, not that they won't try, but it makes it more difficult for them to come back with objection after objection after objection. Then I do the rephrase. So if I understand what you're asking me, is you want to know why we do this when our competition does that. Is that your question? Yes, it is. So now you have an opportunity to talk about the quality of the service you provide and not the other technical issues that you may not be able to compete on. You want to talk about what you do better than the competition. Now, they may not have asked it in that fashion. That's why we rephrase it. And once I get to that position, then we're in a position to actually deal with the objection. So, first step, softener. Second step, isolate. Third step, rephrase. Then you're ready to go. If you do that, you won't get the yes buts. Make sense? Okay. We have, I've got about 5-7 more minutes of stuff, and I'm going to leave some time for Q&A. Is that okay? And then we'll be out a few minutes early? Unless they're paying me by the minute and I haven't found out yet. Okay. In that case, we'll be here till midnight. Okay. One important point, I brought it up earlier briefly, and that is this. How we treat the client is probably one of the most important issues, because your reputation, especially in this business, with your reputation and your referrals, those are the 2 things that I think are the lifeblood, are key. And if for some reason they're not totally happy with whatever that is, now how would people define that? Whether it's how long it takes to get, how many rings before the phone gets answered, how long it takes to get a phone call returned, how often your case is updated, or those issues. Something I said? You can go. We'll wait. We'll wait. Go on. Okay, no problem. Hurry up. Okay. I have that effect on people. So, what was I talking about? I'm sure it was good.
How you treat the
Oh, how you, okay. So, in my mind, we go out of our way, above and beyond, because I think that is going to pay dividends more than you possibly know. And one of the philosophies we have is no matter what it costs, no matter what it takes, we make it right. If we make a promise, we make good on it no matter what it takes. And I had an opportunity to practice what I preached several years ago. I was booked to do a program in Marco Island, Florida, for the Sony Corporation. You may have heard of them. And the whole conference was taking it to the street. So it's all based on street fighting. I'm the Monday morning keynote speaker. Not only were they paying me to be there, but they were going to throw in a Sony car stereo system on top of it. Well, you guys getting me? Yeah. So this thing was booked 6 months in advance. I was all excited. Well, 6 months goes by a lot faster than you possibly can imagine. It's Monday morning, 2 a.m. I stroll into the house. I was out doing research. I get in, I see the machine's blinking. And I listen to the message. It's my brother Mark, my business partner, and he's screaming on the machine. He goes, "Call me, it's an emergency." I thought somebody got hurt. I call him up. He goes, "What are you doing in Columbus?" I go, "I live here. What's your problem?" He goes, "You're supposed to be in Marco Island, Florida. You got a program at 9 o'clock in 7 hours. You have to be there to do a keynote speech." Well, I said, "You're nuts." And then I look at the calendar and my heart stops. For some reason, I spaced it. I don't know to this day how I did it, but I look at the calendar and sure enough, in 7 hours, I have a keynote speech followed by a workshop for this major client, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, it's just, I go crazy. I guess how many nonstop flights you can get out of Columbus, Ohio to Marco Island, Florida at 2 in the morning. I call the client up, the meeting planner, who's just in a panic, says, "What am I going to do? My boss is going to fire me." I said, "Let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do." I get the yellow pages out. I look up charter flights. I know it's a long shot. Turn to the page, charter flights. Somebody ripped the page out. Find another copy. Dial one number after another after another. Nobody is answering their phones at 2 in the morning. How can they run a business like this? Finally, after the 10th try, somebody answers. It's an air ambulance service. I said, "I have a medical emergency. I need to be in Marco Island by 9 o'clock this morning." "What's the nature of your emergency, sir?" "If I don't get there by 9 o'clock, the guy down there is going to kill me." "Well, do you have a major credit card?" I said, "I got all of them. What do you need?" Turns out they have these Learjet, which is a tiny jet, and a tiny Learjet 25, ambulance jets in different cities throughout the country. They had one in Detroit, which is closest to Columbus, Ohio. Comes with a pilot, a co-pilot, and a registered nurse. It's a package deal. They can be in Columbus within 30 minutes, and it's just a 2-hour flight directly to Marco Island. I do not have to go commercial. I don't have to go through Atlanta, wait 3 hours, go to, Fort Myers, you take a bus for a day and a half. I mean, they can literally get me there a couple hours early. I said, fine. I rush off to the office, and I get all my books and my videos and a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke out of the fridge because I drink one of these a day to help calm my nerves. I go to the airport. I'm in the waiting room. It's about 3 o'clock now, one little night light on, and I have about, 45, 50 minutes before the plane is due to land. So I'm pacing back and forth. There's no glasses, so I'm just drinking the 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke out of the bottle, and it was nicely chilled. And I'm going back and forth, and I'm trying to calm my nerves down because, you make a mistake like this, you can ruin your career. And, a lot of my best friends are motivational speakers, and they try to teach me these affirmations, and, I'm trying to, calm myself down. "You stupid, you idiot, you don't." And that wasn't working. Anyways, about 20 minutes later, I've polished off the entire 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke with caffeine. I don't need a plane. When it lands about 10 minutes later, I hop on board, we take off. 10 minutes into the flight, I just realized I drank a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke. Now, this little plane has just about everything you can imagine except one thing. They don't expect their normal clientele to be able to get up and go. And that wasn't their standard medical emergency, so there's no bedpans or anything. Now, I'm already in pain, so I'm not going to survive another 90 minutes of the flight. It's not like at 42,000 feet I can just roll down the window. The nurse sees what's going on and says, "I have a solution to your problem. Catheterization." I said, "Let's hold that idea in reserve." I crawl up to the pilot and co-pilot and say, "What do you guys do on a long flight?" Well, the co-pilot had packed himself a lunch. In his lunch, he has some carrot sticks in a Glad plastic bag with a Ziploc top. He empties the carrots out, hands me the baggie with the most serious face I've ever seen in my life, says, when you're done, make sure the strip at the top turns green. Worked great. 15, 20 minutes later, they land the plane. I'm ready to leave. The pilot says, how long are you going to be? Well, I got a keynote, breakout, sign some books, answer some questions. I'll be done by noon. We'll wait. Return trip was free because I had to go, you have to book it round trip. But guess how much it cost me one way going down? Any idea? 25. It was 25 grand and no frequent flyer miles. But you know what? I would have paid 50 if I had to. I mean, obviously, I didn't make the margin I wanted to make on that particular speaking gig. But when I just showed up, the client was thrilled to death. I mean, usually they wait till you're done to have an opinion. I just showed up and he was happy. Now, the reason I share this story with you was because it was such an unusual example of taking care of the client, and fortunately I was able to buy my way out of the problem, okay? But that client has called me back a number of times since. But not only that, they've told the story to other major clients, and from what I've been able to even figure is that it's actually paid for itself tenfold that I'm aware of. So it never costs you to take care of those clients. It pays you in the long run. Now on the way back, it was kind of interesting. After things calmed down, halfway through the flight, they present me with my bill. I get reclassified from a medical emergency to a standard passenger. So they tack on an extra 10% excise tax. And that was an extra, $1,500. Found out later if they would have catheterized me, it would have been a medical expense. I could have saved $1,500. Best $1,500 I ever spent. So, yeah. So take care of those clients. We have just about 10 minutes left. Questions? Anything about marketing, advertising, promotion, traditional stuff? I don't do a whole lot on the web because there's too many other experts on that kind of stuff. But anything about marketing and advertising? And let's do it in the microphone so we have it for the video. Okay? Yeah, he liked that. Not only that, are you making a video? Are you going to edit this later? Oh, okay. So we need to do some B-roll, some cutaways, because I need your help on this. So when I do my demo from this, it'll look good. So what I need you to do is, okay, and you guys film this, I'm going to say something, and then when I say 3, I need you to stand up, give me a standing ovation, and just applaud like it was brilliant, okay? Just for B-roll, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Okay, good. Okay, sit down. Okay, now I'm going to say something really funny and just burst out laughing. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, now something really serious. You just got the 1 point that made the whole conference worthwhile, and I'm a genius. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I didn't strip. That's good. Okay, we got 5 minutes left, so we have time for 2 or 3 questions. And just here, come up to the mic, right here.
I have a question about how do you find out what really motivates somebody? You talked about the car dealer experience, and what I was thinking about, you're talking about children and how good they are. And I recalled a few months ago, my daughter called me up, and she had decided she wanted to upgrade her living space. But she didn't start off by saying, Dad, I need a new apartment, can you help me out? She called me up and says, oh, I'm really tired today, Dad. Last night, she lives in New York City. Oh, there were all these gunshots last night, and again. And it's hard to sleep with that. So I'm like, well, maybe you should live somewhere else. Well, as a matter of fact, Dad, so, I mean, she's my daughter. She knows what motivates me. But how do you find out in interviewing someone for 5 or 10 minutes what motivates them?
Great question. Okay, first of all, you never offer a solution right away. So maybe you should live someplace else. Well, what do you think should happen? Would you like earplugs and a bulletproof vest? But you would, instead of saying, maybe you should move, just say, what are you thinking? Let them come up with the solution, because then they're more likely to buy into it. And then when she says, well, I want to move, so I want you to pay for a new apartment. Okay, and then it's easier to turn her down. Okay, question?
With respect to television advertising, when it comes to monthly programming, what's the most efficient reach and frequency that you would recommend before you start spending dollars in a different area?
Good question, and it's a complicated question. It depends on seasons, it depends on shows. Unlike radio, you don't buy channels so much as you buy individual shows. So if you have if you know what your target audience is, if you know what your best demographic is for you, you can identify the shows that reach those demographics. And then if you can try to find some off-season ones or that just haven't seen favor as far as the ratings are okay, and you go by cost, ask for cost per thousand when they do it, when you get the quotes, but then you find the prices, what they want for the spots, and start negotiating more spots. And also, like I mentioned before, condense them if you can. Another trick you can do is usually you can buy a 10-second spot for about half of the cost of a 30. So in the same, let's say 30-minute show, if you run your 30 at the beginning of the show and you run a 10 at the later of the show, it'll have almost the same impact as two 30s because it reminds them of the full information if you can get your information in a 10-second spot. But the best thing you can do is something like where you give them flexibility, where schedules that are not specific to shows, where they can run it anywhere from day parts from like 6 to, they'll call it like prime time, access, late night. So you pick a day part like that, and they can run it any time within there, and your cost per thousand will drop down a lot lower. And it's a lot more complicated than that, but unfortunately that's all we have time for. But television can be the most powerful medium if it's done right. Time for one last question.
This is a question about direct mail. And what's the optimum number of pieces of direct mail to send before you start kind of having diminished returns and people are just hacked off at you? And what should the timing be between pieces of direct mail?
The optimum amount is up for testing. The neat thing about direct mail is you can send out 20, 30 pieces first class and just see how it works and chart the response and then test against different messages. Once you find a combination that works, then you can go out 200, 300, 400 at a time, or it depends on how big the list is, depending on where you're getting your list. Frequency is probably important. I would do it, especially if a newly injured person, once a week for 3 weeks, you could test out. But again, it's trial and error. Track all the direct mail you do, every version of it, so that over the course of a year or two, you begin to find out what works best in your marketplace, because it'll be different for everybody. So testing is really critical on that. Okay?
And why do you say first class?
Because if it's under 200 pieces, you can't do bulk mailing. Plus, first class is more likely to get read. Plus, if it looks bulk mail, it's going to look like junk mail. It's going to get tossed. So if you're going to do the standard junk mail, forget it. Make it look different, special, somehow, so that it doesn't look like junk mail. If it looks like junk mail, I think you're wasting your time, unless 2% will work for you. And if it's enough for you, that's fine. If it's already successful, don't change it. Okay? I have 2 minutes? 2 more questions. Okay. Is that okay? Okay. Because no one hit me with a paddle yet. 1 more question? 2 more questions? None? Okay. I'll repeat it. I'll repeat it for you. Go ahead. Do I recommend purchasing remnants for radio ads? It's not necessary. You can negotiate tap plans, and there's different schedules that you can buy where they will do remnants for you. For example, let's say that in your business, the best time for you to advertise is during an ice storm, because that's when people are more likely to get hit. I'm just guessing, okay? And you could have a standing order with the radio station when there is an ice storm, or you're predicting ice, or under what circumstances, you're going to run my 20 commercials. And when the weather's good, you don't run it. So that you're more likely, and we have body shops that do the same thing, and heating, air conditioning. So you can, now this will be the number 2 or 3 station in the market, probably not the top one, but they will work with you so that when you run your commercials, you're more likely to hit people, so to speak, at the right time. Okay, great question. I do have a couple copies of books on the registration table. So, let me show you. Who got my book, my helper? Show them the book. Okay. And how have you liked it so far? Would you recommend it? So that's $20 back of the room here. Here's the original one, $20. This one's, I don't know, whatever I can get for it. I have a video back there and some other stuff. So remember, I do have 6 children, 3 of which are triplets, and no chance of hell going to college. So I have to say, this is the best group of lawyers I've ever spoken to in my life. You've been a delight. I want to thank you, and I want to thank Ken for inviting me. I'll be back here if you have questions, so I'll stick around. Thank you very much.